What about other types of spaces that aren't open space, such as car parking that may be underused? What's the views on those?
Certainly, I think in certain areas of Queen's Park, I could point to car parks that are on housing estates that are underused, which could be much better used as play facilities for children, which are also in short supply. We recently reclaimed an open space which was being informally used as a car park, as a playground for children, and it's being very well used now. So I think, and there hasn't been a sort of outcry from people who used to park their cars there. And I could certainly point to 3 or 4 areas just in one ward in Queen's Park where there is a lack of amenity quite significantly, and yet an opportunity is presented in those open spaces for something better for the local community than parking. And I suppose the other thing to consider is, perhaps we need to be encouraging our local communities to be shifting off the reliance on, particularly in such a central London location, of 1 or sometimes even 2 vehicles per household, and perhaps taking advantage of other things like car sharing schemes, and providing more opportunities when we are building homes for storing bicycles in, which currently not really much provision is made for. But I think there's scope for quite a bit of work around those things.
Would you consider, say, a residential development on a block of garages or an unused car park? What's your views on that?
I think I'd echo the point that was made over here by my colleague, that the open spaces are in such short supply. They really are sacrosanct, and they ought to be protected at all costs, and that the emphasis should be on turning those spaces into viable, vibrant and positive use open spaces, rather than defunct, dead spaces that collect litter.
But at the same time, you'll have people living in those neighbourhoods who may be living in overcrowded conditions, who would desperately want to have a family home in the same neighbourhood where they can keep their children in a local school. So I
don't think it's in anyone's interest to be building a community which has no open spaces.
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying when you're talking about just the sort of space that you spoke about, and if one option for it is to build housing and another is to do something better to improve the usability.
I think the quality of life for the majority of people living on any one of those estates is enhanced significantly more by the virtue of having some open space on those estates. And we are lucky in Westminster that many of our housing estates do have open spaces around them. And I think it would be anathema to think that we would start building on those open spaces in order to be able to provide the odd additional house here and there.
I don't think it's quite as clear-cut as open space versus development. There are clever design solutions whereby publicly accessible open space can be incorporated into developments. An example of that's an existing building, the Four Feathers Youth Club is a good example of how development can be provided with ground floor space for the kids to use at a very well-designed terrace. And it's actually the best of both worlds. It's the use of an underdeveloped site. It's some built development, but also public accessible and well-usable open space. There are examples of where you can achieve both aims. You don't necessarily lose all the open space, but you do get development that delivers its own take on open space.
Okay.
I'm sorry to be late, I've been working, I just couldn't get here sooner, but I would want to echo what's been said down this end about, Harry Road has got the least open space of the 3 northern wards of that, in that area. And although I suppose one could squeak in the odd bit of additional accommodation if one was very clever, to lose anything there was in that ward would be really quite a disaster.
Okay. I think that captures the range of use. Was there anything?
I'm just going to follow up Amanda's question about if there was a garage. If there was an example where a garage is not used and there are no parking uses and it couldn't provide good open space, then maybe it could provide good family housing or affordable intermediate housing. It's a bit case by case, isn't it? As long as there's a point of principle that's accepted.